Hello and welcome. My name is Peace Mitchell and I'm co-founder of Women Changing the World Press. Before we begin, I would like to pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land that we live and work on, the people of Mamu country in North Queensland. And I'd also like to pay my respects to traditional owners and elders, past and present, right across Australia and the Torres Strait. Well, I'm very excited to be here today talking about our new book, Authenticity and Action. And I have one of our fabulous co-authors joining me, Christie Nicholas. Please join me on stage, Christie.
Hi, Peace. Hi, everybody. Glad to be here.
It's wonderful to have you here, Christie. Now, for people who haven't met you before, I would love you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about you and the work that you do.
Okay. Peace. On a business side, I'm the CEO of Mum Power, and Mum Power is Australia's #1 marketing agency that fast tracks growth for brands that speak to mums. So that's what I do on a business side. And through that whole journey of 15 years in business, I've really been able to live, breathe, and feel all the ups and downs of what it's like to build a business, enter new parts of life and be a mum, and that whole journey. So now I'm taking what I've learned on that side of things and bringing it out to a new audience, and my role is now expanding to really transform lives and mindsets of high achieving women so that they live in alignment with their dreams and their selves.
Oh, I love that so much. That's amazing. So, Christie, your chapter is called From Exhaustion to Expansion. Can you tell us a bit about that title and why you wanted to write this story?
Well, the reason why it came to that point is because the past 15 years, like the rest of the world, there's been so many ups and downs and too many things outside of our control. And that really did play havoc on my life personally, professionally, and everything in between. And I really noticed how much I had changed over 6 years. And it got to one point where I guess I had gotten to too many breakdowns and they had really affected me. And I wasn't myself. Physically, I wasn't myself. Mentally, I wasn't myself. Personally, I just didn't recognize myself anymore. And it was a very scary moment for me because I didn't know a way forward when, with all the upheavals that we'd had with the economy, with business, with ourselves and so forth. I just didn't know how I was going to navigate the future and feel good in my own skin and my life and my journey. But little bit by little bit, even those breakdowns were horrible and they did bash me around a little bit, I rebuilt my myself and my life, and I got to a point where I was living in alignment with what was really exciting and fueled me for this next phase of my life. And I wanted to be able to shine the spotlight on all these breakdowns that we all feel that bring us to the point of exhaustion, and how we can turn that around so that we get back into alignment.
It's such an interesting story, and I think it's something very common for a lot of small business owners. We do put ourselves under so much pressure, and it's hard. And in the last few years, as you said, we've been through some hard times in the last 15 years as business owners. But in your chapter, you talk about your childhood and the fact that your parents were also small business owners, and something that they instilled in you again and again was, whatever you do in this life, never run a business. Can you tell us about this mantra and why they gave you this advice?
Yeah, for sure. Well, growing up, like they were running a small business because that was the best option for them. My dad, he did migrate here from Greece. He didn't speak good English. He didn't come with an education, and the only way that they could get ahead was with pure labor and hard work. And for them, yes, they entered a small business and it was tough. And there were obviously some amazing sides to that as well. they felt like this is so tough. We want our kids to have an easier future. We want them to get their education, get a clean job, and not feel like they have to work physically as hard as what we are. So it came from them. It really was the best advice that they could give us. They thought that there would be a better way forward for us. So that was their way of steering us in the right direction. But unknowingly, they had put like a roadblock in front of a path I didn't even know if I wanted or not, but it was not, it shouldn't really be an option for me, is how I was how I was raised to view having a business. So that was ingrained in me. Oh, I better not have a business. And I had to really work through that, which took a little bit of time.
Yes. So as a result of being told all that time through your childhood not to go into business, you actually went into corporate and worked in corporate marketing for many years. But you came across an article, and in this article, it asked a very thought-provoking question. The question was, in 10 years from now, what would you regret not have had a go at? So can you tell us a bit about that moment and the realization that you had?
Yes, I remember reading about that in the newspaper at the time, and I had gone for a walk and I was really pondering it, and just thinking about that question, playing over and over again. And while I was walking, I just remember thinking, okay, what is that for me? And for me, it was having a go at running a business. I wanted to see if I had what it takes. Because it was so different to the life that I was living, but it was something I was always curious about. I wondered, was I good enough? Was I capable enough of running a business? So it really stood with me that this is something I'm going to regret if I don't actually throw my hat in the ring and have a go with it. So that was an amazing article and a point that was made, because it forced me to face the truth, because no one else had to know. It was my truth, and that was a truth that I had to acknowledge. You know, like when you hear something like that within yourself, I know nobody else knows it, but you know it. And it haunts you if you don't do anything about it. And that's what happened.
So for you to have the courage to leap into starting your own business, you had to let go of your corporate career. And this theme came up for you again later in when you'd been running your business for a while. Those years of the pandemic, and you were living in Melbourne, one of the toughest cities in the world during the lockdowns, for an events business. And so in your chapter, you say that you knew inside that there was more for you, that there was more that you could do that would have a bigger impact. So it feels like once again, you had to face that fear of letting go of what you'd known and leap again into something new. Can you tell us about this?
Yes, it was a really scary crossroads that I got to, because I had proven capability of running an events business, and we were very successful with it, and it had been an amazing catalyst to prove to me that yes, I can run a business and I can run a successful business, and yet here I am wanting to go in a whole other direction. So it was really quite conflicting, because I was afraid, because I thought, well, if I walk away from what I'm doing to chase what feels right for me on the inside, or what my insides are telling me I want to do, I was afraid that it meant that I was now a failure, and going back to those beliefs of, am I good enough to smart enough, capable enough to run a business? I had to battle with it, that if I walk away from this, does this now mean that everything I did, I'm a failure, and I didn't succeed purely because I wanted to walk away? So that was the first crossroad that I had of, would I be defining myself as a failure? But then what I did was I really put that concept aside, and I just stuck with the facts about which was, I want to go in another direction. And I didn't get too caught up with the emotions of, how does this affect my identity? I stepped away from that. I did have to it did take some time to reframe that in my mind. But then I really just focused on having the courage, building the courage to step away from something that on paper seems like a crazy idea to do. Something that everybody around me was saying, no, stay in your lane, keep doing what you know works. So having the courage to acknowledge all that, plus the whole identity stuff, and find it within me. Nobody else, not one other person was able to back me. And I had to make that decision all on my own. And it was a really hard decision. But I just remember thinking, because it was quite a process, that the advice I was getting is that it's not so much whether it's right to stay or right to go. The hard part is the actual decision-making process. And once you make that decision, what's on the other side of the decision, you can handle it. And that is exactly what happened.
I love that advice, that it's actually making the decisions the hard part. Like once you've made that decision, then you can move forward. But yeah, it is. It's facing that decision and weighing up all the pros and cons and then committing. So you did reach the point of exhaustion though in your journey. How did you come back from that? I think it's something that a lot of people face, and then they think it's a sign to just like step away from everything and give up. But that wasn't your story. Can you tell us how you navigated that and how you came back from that point of exhaustion to get excited again about the business and everything you do?
Sure. The exhaustion did build up over the year. Like over a good 12 months, it was chipping away at me. And I remember a number of different incidents that were a reminder that you're not really on your game here, and you're not at your peak. You're not yourself, like emotions, physically, all sorts of things. Like I do remember getting to the point where the only way I could describe it is I felt numb with life. Like I didn't even know what I would want to eat. I didn't know what food really tasted like because I was so disconnected from myself and my senses. Like that's how it felt. And then obviously really like dark clouds, they kept lingering a little bit more than what I would have liked or what I was used to. So it took a long period of time where I did have a slow decline. So it's not dramatic. And because it's a slow decline, a slow burn, you can like get away with it for a little bit longer. But unfortunately, because I left it for so long, I did get to the point where I really did fall into a heap. And I guess I got to the desperate point where I did turn to a friend and I just let it all out, how I was feeling. I really needed somebody to chat to. So by chatting to her, she gave some real practical advice that it sounds so obvious, but when you're in the thick of exhaustion, you actually can't think straight and you don't know what you really need. And she really put in perspective. She just said, go to the doctor, get your bloods checked out. And obviously, I laugh about it now because it's such a practical idea, but it just didn't, that idea didn't come to me at the time. And that was where the rebuilding started. So getting my bloods, acknowledging where my deficiencies were physically, and then seeing the right people to support me. And then going from there, like once I knew that, I thought, oh my God, this makes a lot more sense. And I could start to repair myself, I could start to heal. And I did draw a line in the sand and make changes in how I was living so that I could now rebuild in a better way forward, and not obsess or think about what the outcomes are going to be, how I'm going to feel, or so forth. Just concentrating on being in the moment, on doing what will make me feel good today, this morning, this afternoon, tomorrow. And bit by bit, because that's what I was concentrating on, you start to genuinely start to feel good more often because that's what you're concentrating about. And then when you feel good more often, I felt like I was projecting that approach to life, and then I was getting it back in other ways as well. And it kept on going from there because then I felt so much more healthier. I was in a better headspace and I was enjoying myself. And before I knew, I mean, it took a little bit of time, but pretty much very, very short period thereafter, I was in a different headspace. I felt myself emerging into a different playing field. So that is how I took myself from really terrible parts of exhaustion and turning that around. And now I'm not saying, oh, you're never going to have those moments. I certainly have those moments, and you go back to getting the balance not quite right and starting to see those effects. But what I learned is not to allow that to be for too long, and recognizing the signs way earlier than what I did back then.
Yeah, well, it's such a fascinating journey. And thank you so much for sharing with us today, Christie. Really enjoyed your chapter. And I know our readers are really going to love reading it as well and get so much advice and inspiration from you. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Peace, for having me. And I hope everybody gets something out of it that will fill their soul as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you haven't got your copy yet, you can order Authenticity and Action from wcwpress.com. Well, thank you for tuning in, and thank you again, Christie. We will see you all again next time. Bye for now.